Sarah Otner is a junior research fellow at the Imperial College Business School in London. She joins me now from the United Kingdom. And Sarah, in the case of the AstraZeneca vaccine, this was really interesting to me because there were no more instances of blood clots in this particular vaccine than in the other vaccines, and even actually in the general population. Yet we had several countries suspend or partially ban the vaccine, and yet other vaccines were not suspended or partially banned. In your expertise, how did this particular instance of groupthink and hysteria take place?
Well, I think one of the situation's key elements is the speed. Normally, we have time to evaluate evidence from many different sources, from many different populations and subgroups, and really take our time with it. I think the decision making at speed this time does lend us towards some suboptimal decision making, such as groupthink. It's also a very emotive topic. We all have family members who we haven't seen in a while. We have family members who might be at risk. We ourselves might be at risk. So we want an answer clear and quickly. And pharmaceutical and medical science is not known for that.
I like how you call it suboptimal decision making, and we know groupthink can lead to disastrous consequences on a small and even a large scale. How can we recognize it when it happens?
So one of the ways that groupthink shows itself to us is when we stop asking critical questions, when we place blind faith in a set of expertise and in the set of evidence that we've been given. So when we stop asking why, what if, what next, what else, and take things as a guarantee, that's when we set ourselves up for problems such as groupthink. I think at the national level, where the governments need to take the information from what is previously private industry and make a good decision for the whole population level, we need to remember that this has been tested in traditional protocols that we trust for other medications in our households, in our hospitals, just at speed. And that speed was enabled based on funding putting in place and really wonderful cooperation agreements between companies and between countries. The science has not been compromised. And so I think that is important to remember, that the decisions that countries are making are going against their own routines and practices that we trust for everything else.
Yeah, and it really is interesting because there's plenty of overwhelming evidence that these vaccines are safe, or even vaccines in general, but we do see a lot of anti-vaxxers, and I'm just using that as an example of groupthink. But what are some of the challenges in overcoming this type of behavior? Because I can imagine that, there's peer pressure, or not wanting to seem like, or thinking that everyone feels this particular way, so it must be right. So how do we get past that and think more critically about issues?
Absolutely. And in AstraZeneca's case, they actually were very honest with us when they found an error in their trial protocol. It didn't affect the efficacy of the vaccine, but they got out in front of that and admitted to it and explained the extent of it. But unfortunately, that has undermined the implicit trust that many of the population have had in their pharmaceutical companies. So beyond the trusting our institutions, like governments and like medicine, the institution of medicine, we need to be able to make informed decisions for ourselves. So I myself have had the AstraZeneca vaccine, as have members of my family, and we were able to make that decision for us based on the information the NHS provided us in advance and on the day. And so I think we can have positive peer pressure as much as negative peer pressure. I'm very proud to tell anyone waiting for their vaccine that it was absolutely worth it for us. A bit of a sore arm, but much better than any sort of COVID or long COVID that we would hope to avoid. And so peer pressure can be positive as well. We also need to remember that companies are trading on the strength of their reputation, and they work very hard to maintain good reputations and avoid any major damaging scandal or controversy. So they would not have started this if they didn't think they could deliver for all of us. And that's a message we need to share as well.
Yeah, that is certainly true. But when it comes to this rash and suboptimal decision making, is it often fear driven? Because it certainly does make sense when you think about the pandemic, and there's a lot of fear and unknowns surrounding it, and even a lot of misinformation that we know is out there on social media. Is that a big driving force?
Absolutely. We are primed to want consensus, to get to a happy ending very quickly. And that leads us to groupthink. It doesn't allow us the space to question or to be uncomfortable with less than perfect information. And so, what we need to try and get to is the best decision with the information available in the speed that we need to get ahead of the crisis. The longer that we go back and forth for absolutely perfect information or unquestionable input, the longer the program is delayed, and the more we run the risk of different local variants or in at-risk populations not getting covered when they could have otherwise.
All right. Thank you so much for some great insight and advice there, Sarah Otner. Thank you.